Welcome back to Coffee with Nate. I'm glad you're here with me this morning. I want to take you back to 1990 when I would have been 18 years old. I would have just graduated high school. I'm gonna put that in ironic quotes that I graduated. But anyway, I was done with high school, and all I ever really wanted to be at that point was a rock star. And a friend of mine named Steve had moved down to Dallas, Texas, with a drummer friend of mine named Doug, and they hooked up with the guitar player for a band called Omen. His name's Kenny Powell, and they formed this band called Stepchild. Now, come on, Stepchild's like the best name ever for late '80s, early '90s band. Awesome, Stepchild. So anyway, he went down there, and they kind of had started to get some traction. And Steve's brother John was in a band with me, and Steve said, "You guys need to come down to Dallas. Hang out with us. You can live with us. You'll start a band. Everything will be awesome." So exciting. So we did it. We loaded up my van, we put our guitars and our amps and maybe some clothes or whatever, and we just drove to Dallas, Texas. I had never really been out of Marshalltown at all. I'm 18 years old, but I had these dreams. In my brain, I'd been living this rock star life for years, and so it just made sense. I'm going to go to Dallas. I'm just going to be really famous and rich. Probably take a couple months, maybe a year. Honestly, that's what I was thinking. And we get to Dallas, and we show up at the apartment. Steve welcomes us, and everything's awesome. It just feels great. I know Steve, and he just made us feel so at home. And then here's the deal: we're living in an apartment, and these guys are in a band, and so people kind of come in and out of that apartment a lot. And the more I'm there that first day, the more I realize how far I am away from home. Everyone was super nice. Everyone was really cool, but they weren't the people I knew. And it kind of occurred to me that the people I knew were, 12 hours away, and I wasn't going to see them. And so it began to occur to me that I'm now isolated a bit. Everybody's really awesome, but I kind of don't know these folks. And I certainly really didn't fit in as this Iowa kid. So I found myself more and more intimidated by the decision that I had just made and all of these new people in my life. And as I found myself kind of moving more towards maybe the corner of the room and trying to be invisible, realizing now the situation that I was in, out of nowhere, Andy comes in. Andy was the bass player for this band, Stepchild. And by the way, I'm going to include links in the comment sections and stuff like that of YouTube videos so that you can see this band. They were awesome. The videos would be about the time I was there, within about a year or so. So anyway, I'll include that later on in the comment section. Anyway, Andy walks into the room, and he's the kind of person that just kind of owns a room. He's super charismatic, and everybody kind of wants to be around him. They kind of want to talk to him, and he's just this super positive guy. And he walks into the room, and he says hi to John, and hey, and then he's like, "Where's Nate?" I had never met Andy before, but obviously he knew that I was coming to sleep on his floor. So he's, "Where's Nate at?" And here I am in the corner, kind of cowering. "Oh, yeah, I'm over here." And so this is what he does. He takes a pencil and a piece of paper, and he writes, "Official words that rhyme with Nate list." Underlines it. I can still see it. I would give anything to have that piece of paper to this day. And he's like, "All right, everybody, here's the deal. We're going to make the official words that rhyme with Nate list. Retaliate." He writes retaliate down. And then somebody else is like, intimidate. Intimidate. And then somebody else, skate. What happens is, whether he meant to or not, is Andy made me the center of attention. As people would kind of yell out another word that rhymes with Nate. This is where I learned the word proliferate, by the way, right? And they'd look at me like, "Yeah, yeah." And I'd look at them like, "Yeah, yeah." And within a very short period of time, I went from being the kind of outsider in the corner, intimidated, to the center of attention around a new group of friends that would become something like family to me, at least for a while. I'm not sure that Andy understood that this was some sort of tactic he had to welcome me. I think this is just the kind of person he is. He simply made me the center of attention. He didn't rely on me to fit in. He took it upon himself because he was the one that had the kind of authority. I mean, it was his house, it was his world. These were his friends. He didn't say, "Well, you can sleep on my floor and eat my food, but it's up to you to fit in with us." What he did was say, "You can sleep on my floor, you can eat all my food, and I'm going to make room for you in our lives." That's what he did. Andy showed me, I suppose, that hospitality is the responsibility of the person who has the power. Hospitality is something that's done by the person who has, the connections. Andy was hospitable to me because he welcomed me into his world and pulled me into his world. And by doing something as simple as, a words that rhyme with Nate list. What a great thing he did. I'm not sure that Andy would appreciate me making this connection. I haven't seen him in 30 years, but it reminds me of that place in Matthew 25. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. And they say, well, when was it that we saw you were a stranger and welcomed you? And, from Jesus' words, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. That when we show hospitality to people, not only are we welcoming them into our world, but we're also doing something kind of holy, right? Something godly, righteous. Now that I have 30 years of life experience that I can use to kind of look back on and interpret events in my life and those things, I now see Andy as one of the righteous that walks this earth. I really mean that. It's not hyperbole to me. Andy is one of a handful of people that really changed my life and provided a model maybe for how I would live my life in relationship with other people. Because what he taught me was this, through his actions. And that is that if we have strength, if we have influence, anything like that, that really ought to be used to cover over the vulnerabilities of other people. That's what he did. He used his position in this little community to cover over my nervousness and to cover over my awkwardness and to cover over the fact that I was a stranger. He used his influence and he kind of covered me with that and he pulled me in and made me a part of the group almost immediately. I think that there's a model there for all of us in our own lives. And I'll just stop there. I don't mean to preach at you, but there is something in Andy that I think would be nice if it were in all of us, including myself. Anyway, those were good times. And I'm glad I went through them, and I'm glad I met Andy. And I'm glad that you've given me a few minutes so I could share that story with you. Hey, Andy, if you're seeing this, and I doubt you will, thanks, man. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. I hope you have a fantastic day because you absolutely deserve it. Peace.